Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today on our quarterly Podcasting Crew event because it is always a fun time to chat with other podcasters. And it's always a good time to kind of pick their brains and see what's happening. So who are our guests today on the show? Well, our guests today are obviously and always Jeff Haas and Barney Smith, of course. Jeff Haas is from the Traversing the Stars podcast, and Barney Smith is from Story Comic Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. How about
Doing
yourself?
well.
Doing good.
Good.
I've been swamped with this darn film I've been working on, so I've had to reschedule a lot of stuff, figure out how to actually plan my life around something other than a podcast. It's kind of a new factor for me.
All right, I have to go, Mom. I'm in a podcast with Kurt Sasso and Jeff Haas. Okay. All right. Yes. I'll tell him that you said hi. Okay. Bye, Mom. She's my mother. She loves watching you guys, and she just really wanted to make sure that she knew that she said hi.
Well,
yeah.
Is she happy that you're hanging out with your little friends?
Yeah.
Is that a cult? Are you in a cult? No, Mom. We're just podcasters. It's okay.
It's the same thing. Let's face it. We're small. We're unusually dedicated to this one thing.
we're really good at what we do. Yeah.
Yes, and we worship followers.
So today it's my turn to host as usual. I mean, we've been cycling this around our various shows here, and it's been a good time overall. I think
everybody's drinking.
Yeah,
that's right. Look at. Do you see my cup?
Glass.
That's
nice.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
That's perfect. I love it.
You can tell we're the cool kids.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I should have had my hat on or something, that had insert slogan here. But when it comes to obviously the show itself, we dive into a lot of different things. Let's do a quick summary as to what's been happening to us, at least in the past few months since our last conversation. We'll start with Jeff, since you're on the screen here.
All right. What's been up with me? Still doing my show, closing in on, I'm at 2.5 years. So I'm closing on my third. Had some good guests of late, some Rachel and Cheryl from Star Trek. Elena, welcome Star Trek. The girl who plays the little pig-nosed girl in Sweet Tooth. Interviewed her recently. Interviewed the woman who voices Rock Talk and Star Trek Prodigy. So I've had some good stuff. I'm closing in on 900 subscribers, so I'm like right around the corner of the big number. So that's me so far.
How about you, Barney? What's been going on you between your radio gig and your podcast there?
It's pretty fun. So this was actually as we mentioned in our last roundtable, I bought a radio station, and now I've been in it now for over 9 months. Things are it's picking up. It's picking up a lot. So it's actually been pretty fun. But on the podcast side, I've been having the most delightfully random guest requests coming in. So basically what happened was, it was a few months ago, I got messaged by saying, hey, they said, would you be able to have Chad Willardson on? I'm like, sure. I had to look him up. He's this guy that's like this huge financial advisor guru that's writes all these top 10 books on Amazon. And I'm like, all right, my podcast is called Story Comic Presents, but we'll go for it. I had a great time. But since I did that, I've had completely people that just don't fit within the mold of my traditional mold of what I usually have on.
Mm-hmm.
I just had on my show Teresa Payton, who was the former White House CIO, Chief Information Officer and she wrote a book about cybersecurity. And she came on. We had a great conversation. We talked for half hour, and I've taken your advice, you guys, when we've talked before. This is the best thing about it. When we talk, when the three of us talk, and when we have Cody on too, I learn a lot from talking to you folks on this. I'm like, that's a great idea. I should try this. And one of them was being able to work a lot with doing shorts, because we talked last time. You guys do a lot of good shorts. I've been pushing out shorts daily now. I just put a draft daily, and now I've been seeing finally my numbers are trying to catch up to you guys. I mean, I might hit 500 this weekend, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Nice.
I've never had 500 subscribers. My audio has always been gangbusters. People listen to my interviews way more than they watch them, but that's what I'm pretty excited about. So it's that little dopamine fix by watching those numbers trickle up a bit.
Yeah, it's hard when you see your YouTube stats kind of just dip at the start of the month and then they slowly start to rise. It's like, okay, I think I'm still doing okay. It's one of
Yeah.
those things.
Well, see, when I did the math for my show, I need to average a new subscriber every single day to get to 1,000 on my 3rd-year anniversary, which is the goal November 1st. So I need literally one almost every single day. Yesterday I lost 2 subscribers, and literally my day was ruined. I was like kept staring. I was like, where did they go? Who are these people? Why did you leave me? I need my 1,000.
Yeah, I'm at 951 as of this interview itself. It goes up and down. I mean, I've kind of stopped. I care because I want to get to 1,000, but I know my watch hours are not going to hit 4,000 hours, which is their monetization factor. But the fact that it's reaching 1,000 people, the fact that you have 1,000 people or whatever number you have doesn't matter really. That's still a number that you haven't had in the past, and that's still more people than you've reached in the previous day or month or whatever. So
Well,
it's small wins, I think.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you know, like if you get to 1,000 subscribers, you don't need the 4,000 watch hours. So you're gonna making the money. It's either 1,000 subscribers or 4,000 watch hours. It's not both. You need one or the other.
I thought it was both.
No, it's
I'm
one
gonna
or
have
the
to
other.
reread that then. Jeez.
No, because it says you either need 1,000 subscribers or 4,000 watch hours to start monotonizing it. It's not both. If I get to a 4,000 watch hours without 1,000 subscribers, I still will be making money on it.
Okay. Well,
So actually, so I'm pulling this up now. So we're gonna see this in real time. Eligibility is that you need at least 500 subscribers and 3 video uploads in the last 90 days, and one of the following. So you need those 2, and one of the following. At least 3,000 watch hours,
Mhm.
or 3 million
short views.
short views.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think that's 10 million for the 4,000 or 10 million short views. It's arbitrary. I think if you don't factor in that, yes, monetization is great, but I think the fact that you're reaching a different audience, you're reaching an audience that with your shorts, you're reaching an audience with your long form content, you're just reaching new people is really what it is. And if you keep that in mind, then losing subscribers really it sucks. I agree. I've been there before, but as soon as you gain one, it's one more person, whether they're real or fake or whatever, and we won't dive into that here.
I don't know. I just want my 1,000. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're all fake, I'll take it. I don't care.
For myself, I've been, because of this whole film thing, I haven't done too much, but I've been still releasing some I'm releasing some short content because Justin Koch has a current campaign with his SWAT Eldritch Blue, which I had a great conversation with him and Rachel Disler a while back. Glad that they're finally getting their campaign going. It felt like that thing was in purgatory for a long time because of numbers or whatever the case may be. But
It's a Zoop. I must admit,
yeah,
for a platform, I do not recommend Zoop.
Mhm.
For those who don't know, I'm the publicist of Justin Koch, so I'm a little biased in this. A lot of the issue is that Zoop is just not a great platform because one, there's a drop off in crowdfunding anyway, and if you're only going to get a certain X number of people to back your book, there's only X number of people who have Zoop compared to Kickstarter, so it automatically kind of undercuts you just a little bit right off the bat by using Zoop, but it's easier to use.
Yeah, I still kind of want to get the creators of Zoop on the show, just kind of pick their brains because I've done I'd like to do Kickstarter. I think I've already done one of the other major ones as well, but I'd like to do Zoop too. So
Indiegogo.
yeah, I think I've done them. It's been a while probably since I've chatted, but I think I've done one or two other crowdfunding campaigns in the past. But I've been releasing more content in general, just kind of on my weekly basis as I normally have it. Some past guests have come back on the show. I was actually a guest on a few other shows recently. One was called the Hump Day Podcast, or Hump Day Calls, I should say, show. Guy out of Florida. Nice guy. I had a good conversation about the podcast itself. Is it a hobby? Is it a business? Things like that. I think that's a good question I kind of want to bring up here. Personally, I think being a podcaster, it's a business. It can be a business if you have the right model. Too many people, because podcasts are free to the masses and the various platforms that they subscribe to, which we will never see any of that money, is available to everyone in all around the world. And I think that's amazing. But what do you guys think about the preconceived notion, I should say, that podcasting is a hobby, or can it be a business?
I'll Barney go first.
So here's this is my is that I'm putting on my MBA hat for a second here. I like wearing this once in a while because do I see this with my, with my skill set? Do I see this, the podcast I've been doing for over 4 years as a business? No, because I'm not treating it like a business. I'm treating it like a passion and a hobby. Because here's the thing, the most successful podcasts are actually part of a brand, and it's not the entirety of your brand. So you'll look at a really good one that I watch is that the Grim and Mild one. What's his name? Aaron. What's his name? He does that lore, but he has a bunch of other podcasts he does. And through that, he has a brand. He does the shows on the road. Stuff you should know. It's these two guys, they banter back and forth. They do a lot of stuff. They have other things within their brand, and they don't rely solely on their podcast to bring them money. And so ultimately what it comes down to, if it's a business, whatever you spend on there, you have to make twice that amount in order to be a successful business. So when I get those automatic, Podbean dings of like once a year, when I get slammed with a annual bill, I'm like, I'm not making any money. Like, it's like, but that's also comes down when you also mentioned with like the Kickstarter piece. Is it a hobby and a passion, or is it a business? And when you see how much money people spend on making a book or making a comic, and they go on the Kickstarter, and then they shoot themselves, they kick themselves when they actually say, I just want to get my book out. I don't care and I'm the last one to get paid. You, my friend, just said you don't want to make money doing this. If you're not actually with the mindset of making twice the amount of money that's taking you actually the money you spend, then you're not making a livable wage on it. If you're not making a livable wage on it, if what you're making isn't paying your health insurance, then it's a passion. And it's a hobby. And using the word hobby seems like it's a bad word, but it's basically a passion. You love doing it. And for me, I love doing my podcast. I love doing it because I get to meet new people. I have met so many nice people. Frankly speaking, if I didn't start my podcast, I never would have met Jeff. I never would have met Kurt if I didn't do this. And my life is richer because I've been doing my podcast. My life is richer. My wallet isn't richer, but my life is richer because I've met you. I've met the two of you, and I've met other people through doing a podcast.
I'm gonna change the wording. It's not a business. It's not a hobby. It's a pursuit. Because the goal eventually, there is a potential to monotonize if you do become successful enough to pull it off. It's a question of time. It's not. I think it's even more of a question of when, not if, and then a question of how much are you going to make once you start doing it. I think it's a pursuit. You're doing something you enjoy. You're doing something with a goal in mind. To call it a hobby, I think, is to minimize what you're doing, but to call it a business is to take it too serious. And you're not, when you're not making money on it, it's not a business or it's a business that's so in the red that it should have gone bankrupt a long time ago. So I would call it a pursuit.
Basically, you're bleeding out every single day, every single month, every single year, until basically you either stop doing your podcast or you make it enough that you can actually pay off any debt you have.
Well, sure. But it's a good point it's a good point what you brought up too, is like talking about that as a pursuit or something, and it's something you have to believe in when you do. Though the reason why the three of us are still doing it for so long is because we believe in the medium and we believe in what we're doing. It's the same thing. Like, nobody ever goes to school and becomes a teacher and says, I'm being a teacher because I want to buy that freaking yacht. Yeah, I'm going to make so much money being a teacher. You're doing it because you love what you do. I see what we do here is as we are an invaluable asset to the arts. We provide a service that we're not asking to get paid for in a way. And that's when someone reaches out and say, hey, can I be a guest on your show? Yeah, sure. It's
I'm gonna say, as someone who is a teacher, I felt that a little too hard. I was like, oh,
Wait.
that you are broke. There's no way out in our future whatsoever.
You don't have your yacht yet, Jeff? What's that? What's
Oh
going
god,
on?
I don't have a yacht. I can't even afford a little fake
A
toy
dinghy?
boat that can on remote control that I can be proud of.
The SS, oh my God, what am I doing?
Oh god, that's the first time when you wake up in the morning. Oh my god, what am I doing?
I think the first thing is I'm glad I haven't stored myself to death. That would be the first thing. How's your file organizational structure for your show? Because I have a ton of, like, I'm organized by year basically.
Yeah, mine's organized by I just have them by episode number. Name.
Yeah, mine. I have files saved by name. I'm run out of space on my computer so quickly.
So I buy hard
Yeah.
drives.
I got Google 2 terabytes on Google Cloud,
Oh yeah.
but it takes like 3 hours to like move one episode over. So it's just like fuck it. I don't have an hour of my life to spend doing this.
You know, the fact that we've been doing this in our various circles for so long, some longer than others, but you know, age is relative and so is time, I guess, for that matter. But when it comes to the podcast and the shows that you guys have created, what's your end goal? How long are you actually going to keep doing this, and why?
All right, so I would say I haven't even thought about that. I don't know if it's just more of like, like I think it's because I've been pacing myself. Like I remember a few roundtables ago where Jeff was doing like, what is it? You're like doing like 5 or 6 a week or something like that.
Yeah.
Same with Cody.
Because I pace myself pretty well and I'm actually in charge of my own time in that sense where I don't feel obligated. I used to feel obligated to take on anybody that reached out. I guess for me, it's that when I don't find it rewarding anymore, but I don't see it. It's so fun. I guess the point of it is that I don't see me stop doing it because I'm not taking it seriously and I love doing it. And I genuinely enjoy talking to people. So, I mean, that's the whole point of buying a radio station is because I like talking to people.
For me, I think the goal is as long as I'm showing adequate growth, I'll be happy to continue. If I do hit that hard wall where, I'm not noticing an improvement in guest level of guests, if I'm not seeing an improvement in subscriber or view count over some point, I may grow tired of it and it becomes more hassle potentially than it's worth. But I think as long as I see growth and I feel like people are paying attention to it, because I don't want to do this just for myself, I guess. I mean, I'm not that chatty, but as long as it's growing, I think I think I will continue with it. As long as there's a goal in mind I can reach, I think I continue. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if there's a point where I'm just gonna be like, this is boring. I'm getting tired of, because it takes. I think the number I thought in my head is that it's 4 hours per episode of work. When you do talk about the prepping, editing, the conversation, the promoting, it's about 4 hours. I think I put in per episode. When the growth is not equal to the hassle, I think I would stop at that point.
I think for me, it's been such a long journey in itself, and I've learned so much from the audio side of things to switching to video to finding a higher caliber level of guest, even though that seems like it's few and far between. But conversations, getting guests back on after say a decade is always fun to do as well. I think that's a great avenue when it comes to saying, call back to past episodes, getting maybe people to look at your past content that they maybe haven't seen or weren't alive to see. There's that generational gap when it comes to that aspect. But I think it also comes to, what else am I going to do? Like I've seen the change of technology. I've seen the change of different styles of content that gets released. It's ever changing. It's no longer about who the guest is. It's about what they're talking about or what they're saying or what they're promoting. So there's many different levels of ways you could put content out there. It just depends on how, if you want to change your style or if you want to change what you're doing. But I think I've I've had such an easy going with this particular format of just talking a one-on-one in a conversational approach that it just kind of makes it just feel like a regular day at the office, so to speak, where I'm just talking with a friend, whether they're known to me personally or this is the first time.
You bring up that good point as well about how things are changing. And I went to a broadcasters conference a couple weeks ago, myself being always the optimist. He was talking about AI and all the things that are happening with AI. And he mentioned the stuff that he was talking about. He said it's going to be happening months down the road, not years down the road. Like he's talking about AI is advancing at such breakneck speed that he said every single town in the United States within months is going to have its own personalized feed of an AI newscaster that's going to giving you AI news, like new personalized news about your specific town and the specific weather. And it'll pull it up and it will be a newscaster looking basically human. Hi, Jeff. Here's the news that's happened in your neighborhood, and it'll look just like a news thing, and it'll pull up like videos just a regular old newscast. It'll pull the news from say like your local school board minutes or your local mayor's meetings or whatever that's happened, and then it'll talk about the weather. It'll talk about the local sports that might have happened in your local high school, and it'll last for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And he said that AI is going at such a breakneck speed that everybody is going to have, if you go to anybody's website, you're going to have 2 pages on there that's going to say privacy policy and terms of use. Every website is going to have privacy policy in terms. You should have, if you don't have that, for those that are listening or watching, if you have your own website, you need to have a privacy policy in terms of use. Put those in there. But now he's saying that every website is going to have, or even in our show notes, for instance, on our podcast, you have to have an AI policy listed, like what you used AI for. And it's talking about that ourselves as brands, that we have determined what our guidelines are using AI and what our guardrails are. What are the things that we can promise our listeners and viewers that we did not use AI for? AI is going to make our jobs way easier and more complicated at the same time. And it depends on where you're sitting at. And I know we've talked before about this. It's not going away. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point of how are we going to be able to use this as podcasters to make our lives easier? And how are we using it to actually like reach our goal of being in front of, because let's be very clear, is that we are competing with every other media for eyes and ears. We're competing with everybody. When that comes down to the point of how do we get those returning subscribers? Because I'll pull up my statistics. I might have just shown somebody a video that did really well, or an interview that did really well, because people liked the person I was talking to. It was irrelevant that it was me asking the questions. So how do we promote our brand itself? Is like we're asking different and unique questions. How are we going to be able to stand out for that? But like you mentioned, Kurt, it's, I guess this is my question then that to 2 of you. How will you not, if you say I'm not using AI whatsoever, you will eventually somehow, like even if it's predictive text, we already use it. If you're on your phone and you're typing to somebody, you're already using AI if it starts to like predict what your next sentence is going to be. If you're using a spell checker is a version of AI.
I mean, that's a dictionary, but yeah, it's well, I get what you're saying there, Barney. But I think it also, and here's the one thing that I did in the last couple of months since our conversation, was I actually attended an AI conference. I was at a 4-day event basically. It came down to about 2 hours of content from a host perspective and a guest perspective in terms of the content they were creating. They were all podcasters, so that was the only common consistent factor. And they had a variety of different topics they were talking about. A lot of the content was in regards to, well, how do I create my own podcasting avatar? How do I create my own images, etc.? Personally, for me, I really hate and I cannot stand AI art or whatsoever. I will not support that in any way, shape, or form because it's just ridiculous. Because of the circles that we're in specifically, when it comes to entertainment and comics, etc., It is a blatant disregard to their creative talents. That's all I'm going to say on that. I posed the question to one of them saying, so one of them was talking about how to create their own AI image content or whatever for a thumbnail, let's say. And I asked them, so I said, so what are the legal ramifications of using AI in terms of content that could be stolen from actual creative people?
Right.
And it took them 5 minutes to, in a very long dead air pause, they basically quoted a legalese thing that they were told to say, which was, make sure that you're using the proper content, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Yes, AI is here to stay. That's fine. That's understandable. But from a text perspective, yes, it makes our lives easier. From a title perspective, it may make it more interesting. From a content perspective of what 3 sentences are you going to generate for your podcast or whatever, that maybe is better than what you've actually written yourself, because you're going to edit this content any way, shape, or form. It's just giving you a brief guideline of what to work with. Then it comes back to how exactly is it making your life easier? Does that amount of time it takes to generate the content you're looking for, does it make your life easier than what you could have done yourself? If the answer is yes, then good. If it's a time factor, then awesome, great, that's fine. YouTube right now has stipulations where it has check marks before you can even post any content that says, does any of this content, is it generated by AI? And if you check yes, it'll watermark it as AI. If you check no, it won't watermark it whatsoever.
Right.
But we're getting to the point where we're understanding what AI looks like, because we're seeing similar word patterns, we're seeing similar phrasing, we're seeing similar image generation, to the point that how unique are you actually going to become? And it's difficult.
Right. Yeah.
I don't use AI on my podcast. I don't really think I'm going to. I will say, to make Barney happy, that I've started using ChatGPT for putting together some school stuff. It is getting used, though. Just it's a nod up to you, Barney. But for my podcast, I don't know. I don't think I need it.
Yeah.
The show notes are not that hard to write. The titles are not. I don't know. They're not original, but they're easy to write. And the questions, there's a chat bot out there that's recent enough to ask the question I'm going to ask in a way I'm going to want to ask them. So I don't utilize it at all at the moment.
And I think for me, we've done this long enough that we know what types of questions we're going to ask. And the fact that we're doing research ourselves, we're not using AI to do research, because if we know who the guest is, like your quality of guests there, Jeff, are well known in the industry, in the entertainment industry. So you have a huge plethora of research to go through, which I don't envy you whatsoever, by the way. I think it's amazing the guests you have on, but I think the amount of research you have to do sounds like a pain in the ass, to be perfectly honest. It's enjoyable, but it sounds like a pain in the ass.
I don't think it's as tough as making it sound. I mean, I prep 10 questions for my guests now. I will say there's at least 3 of them that are repetitive. What inspired you? How to get involved? What's next? The other 7 are where the research comes in. I will say it's more expensive than it is hard. I got to buy the comic books. I got to watch the TV shows. I got to go to the movie. But because I do focus almost entirely on what that one project is that they're doing, it's not as much research as you may think it is. Like when I interviewed John Pisano, who did King of the Planet of the Apes, I watched the movie. I sat down. I went to the theater, watched the movie, and then I spent some time listening to the music. But it wasn't like I went to the library and opened a book on the history of Planet of the Apes in composition of music. So I don't think it's as bad as it sounds like it is. It's probably, I don't know. It takes me about 25 minutes, 30 minutes to write the questions. If I watch a movie, it's 3 hours watching 2.5 hours to watch the movie, listen to the music. I'm probably spending about an hour listening to the music to prepare. If I gotta read the comic books, if it's like issue 6 of a comic book series, I'm not reading all 6 issues.
Right.
I'm usually reading the first one, the last one, and then either the second or the 5th, if there's 6 issues, to make sure I understand how I got to a certain point or where it started from. But it's rare that I'll buy all 6. 1, because I don't have the money, and 2, because I don't have the time. And also, you don't really need to. No one's going to listen to a step-by-step examination of every issue of a comic book series. So read the first, read the 6th, read something in the middle, 2nd or 5th, depending on how I go about it. and some of it after that point you can kind of just infer. Like I interviewed J.M. DeMatteis just recently, a couple of days ago, and we are talking about Shadow of the Green Goblin. I read issue 1, I did issue 3. Like I said, so it's not quite as much work as I think it is. Like I used to, when I started doing Spoiler Country, I would spend all that time going back, go through their whole history and how they got there and their acting style, and I would research the acting style. But I was like, no one gives a shit. No one's gonna listen to that. No one's gonna sit through that. I got these people maybe for 15, 20 minutes of their time to watch. I'm not gonna spend time off topic. So it's not. I don't think there's as much research as it seems like it is.
There is some. It's just not as much as people may
Yeah.
understand.
I mean, like I said, I mean, if I'm interviewing a composer and I will try to get the music, I will listen to most of the songs, sometimes more than once, to get a sense of what they're trying to say.
Mhm.
But like I said, I'm not going back and researching why a violin gets used in the second part of a structure of blah. Because I mean, I don't care. No one cares.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't quite go that deep.
It's not quite John Williams that you're interviewing type deal. It's, this was
Right.
really moving music. I really enjoyed it. Oh, I loved how this sequence came in, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, usually what we'll do is I'll find there's 20 songs. I'll go through maybe 10 of them, and then I'll pick out like that's an interesting piece of the sound that he hit right there. What is that? Why would he use it? Then I'd ask them that question. They'll answer it, and I'll move on. And because I picked out one piece out of it, sounds like I'm smarter than I am, and I just go from there.
Yeah, I completely understand. That kind of dives into another question here. Something that happened to me recently. Like 10 years ago, I had a guest on the show, and I got an email from them recently because they saw one of their only interview that was ever done on the show was up online, and they asked me to take it down. And I'm thinking, well, okay, what is the absolute reasoning behind that? And they said to me, well, that was a geek phase of my life, and I've moved on from that. What would you do in that type of situation?
Barney, want to hit it first, or I'll go first? I'll go first on this one. Then Barney.
Yeah, go first.
Couple of things. First, was there an agreement that they could take it down whenever they wanted? It was up there as their courtesy. Second question would be, is there legalese involved? Is there legally? Like I had this one guest. I'm not gonna say who he was, but I was interviewing him, and he talked about the fact that the country that he came from, which was in Africa, there was I guess it's being run by a very dictatorial guy, and he was insulting him on the show. And he messaged me actually after I released the episode. He contacted me. He goes, "Hey, I was thinking about that. I do go home once in a while, and maybe I shouldn't have this. I shouldn't be saying this on your show because he's kind of a bad dude, and he could kill me." And so I went back and I edited it out. It was like, you know what? Good point. I don't want to be the reason why someone gets murdered, unless that would be a great episode. But you don't know. It would depend. Is there a legalese involved? Is it a lawyer who contacts me? Was there an agreement that I've had some guests tell me before the interview I have the right to edit, so anything that's there I can have the right to cut. So I might have to. I got to be more careful with that one. But if it's just some guy saying I feel uncomfortable with that episode, oh, there's that one guy, who is a former client. He said, "Hey, I did a live show with him. I posted." He goes, "Can you take that down for me?" No, my fucking views. The one thing I got out of this whole damn thing was my 15 views. I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
I dare you. You're not going to make any money on it. But it really would be a question of the reason behind it. What was the agreement before the show started? And also, what is the cost of me keeping it up? Like, am I losing 100 views, 1,000 views? Am I losing 5?
Yeah.
What's the cost?
Because it was like 9 years ago, no agreement was in place whatsoever. There's no legal involvement. There's nothing in regards to any stipulations. What he did back then, which was interesting at the time, got me about 500 views. That's when the restrictions were a lot looser on YouTube, when they weren't throttling absolutely everything because of whatever searchability, etc. And the fact that my website also has like his name attached to it as well, but my website's been borked for years now, so I can't do anything about that. Still fixing it, by the way. If I set it to private, it was fine, because unlisted does absolutely nothing on YouTube these days, because it means nothing. It just got to the point where it's like, I think I've taken it down in the past before, and I've just thought, why was I taking this down? And then I put it back up. I took it down for now, and we'll see what happens. But honestly, it's not really a big deal, because it's a very super niche that I think no one even does anymore. So it's not going to draw any interest
Right.
towards
I
it.
mean, and honestly, the other question is, when I have a guest on, I'll say I work with the publicist to get them on the show. The publicist asked me to do that for them. The question is, how interesting is this publicist? Certain publicists that are bigger names than others and have bigger names under who are their clientele. If they have a big clientele, maybe I'll do them the favor and shut it down because I don't want to lose the publicist. But I've had some publicists who made some weird demands of shit, and they were like nobodies, and I just kind of blew them off. I was like, what are you gonna do? Not bring me your client of who's like 45,000 ranking on IDMB? I'll survive without you. Move on.
I guess from my perspective is that I've never had somebody come on and say, hey, can you remove that? I did have one person say, I didn't like my interview. Can we redo it? And I'm like, dude, this is free. You're just wasting more time. Like, I'm more concerned about my own reputation than I'm about their reputation.
Right.
So for me, it's like, it literally costs me nothing if I just take it. Yeah, sure, why not? But like you said, make it unlisted, and that still might be able to help your stats, I guess, too. I got nothing. Yeah, of course I can of course I can take it down for you, man. I'm not, in the long run, it's easier to win the war than lose, lose a battle than it is to win the war. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he hasn't been on at all, it's just one of these one-offs that 500 people saw, and that was it. It was like, all right, cool. Whenever he searches his name, it pops up. I'm like, isn't that a good thing usually? Like, if you're vain enough to search your own name, to figure out what's showing up on the internet about yourself, then awesome. But
I mean, also something like that though shouldn't be on any more shows. I mean, if I knew who the guy was, I knew that's what he did to you, I probably wouldn't bother getting him on my show because he wouldn't be worth the effort. And something like that will cost himself. I'm sure the podcast community isn't that massive. I mean, there's less and less of us all the time, it seems like, out there.
Yeah, I mean, over 10 million podcasts currently, and how many survive past episode 10? But
I will say, and I will just to add that point, as a publicist who constantly contacts podcasts to put guests on, the number that still exists in a year is so much smaller. Like if I look at the podcasts who I contacted 3 years ago and the ones I contact now, there's not a whole lot that carried over. Most of them have shut down, gone on, leave, life got in the way, or whatever reasons they have. It's a small enough community, and that guy's going to get caught. That people are not going to want him on the show. And I told you about that story that I had with that guy who like emailed me. He's like, I watched that episode, and I make a little squeak sound on that chair. Can you go back and edit that stuff out? Stuff like that. It was like, I think I said like 5 times. I Bentley said like final draft.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
Yeah, you got to be a little careful. And you can't let these people's ego either, though, because someone who does do that to you is going to be that kind of person who's going to do that again and again. That stuff should be shut down because my life is not going to be centered around a jackass guest who's going to tell me when they can put something up, not put something up. And like I said, unless there's something either legal issue with it, or there's a reason why I want to talk to I don't want to lose the publicist or some other benefit. I must admit, I'm thinking to myself, just, I spent 4 hours to do this job. I'm not wasting it for you, pal.
Yeah, I mean, that happened to me as well, too, with that same guest you were talking about. He messages me, and by the time you release this, my crowdfunding campaign is going to be done and gone. I said, yeah, no, I realize that, and I told you in my terms of service, and I told you in the actual at the end of the interview that this will get posted when it gets posted. So with that forethought in mind, I actually took the time to edit out everything in regards to your crowdfunding campaign, but I kept your main content in because it was great information that other people that are in that industry would enjoy learning about, about your process and the actors and blah, 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 etc. Never messaged me back or anything like that. So probably never even shared it whatsoever. And it's not like I care, but it was good content and I posted it. But I took 6 hours to edit that. I'm not going to just not release something because it doesn't coincide with your crowdfunding campaign.
I was going to say what you were talking about. I got some advice. The listeners and viewers, we have a group chat that we're all part of. And I had one guy, super nice comic creator. Love the guy. The guy is amazing, super nice. Like he's the kind of guy that I bet if I was out driving in my car, blew a tire, he'd come out and help, put the tire back on. Nice guy, super nice guy. He says, can I come back on? I have a new Kickstarter coming out. And I said, geez, listen, he's been on the show like, 2 or 3 times already. And so I've never been one to turn people down, but I kind of soft turned them down by saying, listen, I said, like, my media manager mentioned that I shouldn't have anybody come back on the show who's had less than 50 views on their video. I'm like, so I'll tell you what, before September comes around, boost those interviews I did with you on YouTube and make sure it gets up there, and then you'll be able to come back on. Because it pains me when somebody comes on and just doesn't promote the videos after the fact.
It also comes back to our and I hate to say this, and this is not putting anyone down because I do enjoy everyone that comes on the show, but it comes back to the clientele who we have on the show as our guests. If they don't bring their following, or if they don't really have a following, then there's not much we can do about it. So I've barely had interviews that reach past 100 views. I'm lucky if they hit 30.
I mean, I will say having my quality of guest ranges quite a bit, from extremely indie to some people that most people would know. And I will say indie comic book guests will draw 10 to 20 views for me. That's pretty much what they're gonna get. My lowest ever number is indie comic book guests as well. I think, and they've never hit higher than, I think my biggest one's like 57, maybe 60 at most. And I can't remember a couple of them because they had a pretty good following. They had their own show and stuff like that. You can say what you want about indie comic books and what podcasts should do for indie, but indie creators do not watch the shows of each other. They don't promote the shows of each other very well whatsoever, and they're not promoting themselves very well, which means there's less of us, and that's why shows that do indie usually fall, or they transition to the like the movie reviews ones. We talk about the new episode of The Acolyte, blah blah blah. You're just like, okay, but you're not doing what you used to do because that wasn't where the views were. And so yeah, it's the same reason why Artist Alley doesn't sell conventions, like indie conventions anymore, because people weren't going to the tables to go to Artist Alley. They're going for the celebrity, and that's how it goes. Artist Alley is basically just there as a courtesy. It seems like it's not there as a business model.
Some creators though do really well in Artist Alley, and I'm not talking just the popular ones. There are some people that get a cult following or enough of a following that they can at least break even, if not make a tiny bit of money. But
the comic book people, or the people who are creating the prints and the artwork? Because artists do okay, they sell the artwork, but we're not talking about people. What I can say, the people who are actually selling a comic book though tend not to get that same level of attention.
Yeah, I think it depends on the comic book itself, and it depends on the following and how they do and the various social media platforms. But I mean that's changed a lot since 5-10 years ago. If at most, I mean, because there's such an inundation of AI artwork that are flooding these artist alleys now, and conventions having to literally take down like entire booths because of it. And I've seen, it'll be interesting to see how San Diego Comic-Con, at least at the end of July, what they do or how they deal with that type of stuff. I'd love to kind of follow that.
Well, Kickstarter's got involved recently with that. Didn't they just shut down a campaign because they said AI art was being used to create the artwork? I think they just shut down a campaign not too long ago.
It's possible. I haven't seen anything about that, but I'll definitely look that up.
DC had to pull a whole print run of variant covers because they said that was based on AI art. So I can't remember how many they were, but they were a whole bunch of DC covers. They're like, do you know how they do like the variants across like the thing? They realized that most of it was AI, or thought to be AI. I don't think they even had proof. They just was told that it was, and they shut down all those covers. They were going to redo it.
Even Magic the Gathering had a variety of artists that were well established that had AI art that was being used, and it's just like it's everywhere, and it's just like how can you deal with it? But we'll say that for another conversation. We're at the final little bit of our show here. Let's kind of wrap up in terms of what's happening. By the way, who's hosting it next? Because I think who did it last?
It's Barney, because I do end of the year.
Okay, all right. So
Barney, I did mine in March, so technically it was always good. We need a fourth. We need a fourth again. Yeah.
The three musketeers are doing it. This problem is finding someone who's really interesting enough to talk to as a group. I mean, there's some people who I drop some names in. I don't know who the proper fourth.
unless we space it every 4 months, and we go that route. It's not like it's a bad situation.
Instead of every 3 months, do it every 4 months.
Until we find the fourth.
Or Cody can come on and show up.
Yeah, if Cody is available. He's been super busy, obviously, with his own life and things like that.
Yeah, real quick, Kurt, I just wanted to bring up that point that you guys were just talking about the guests. It reminds me of that we, at the radio station, we'll do remotes where we will show up and we charge to have people come and do their remotes. And so one person asked to say, hey, I'm having a sale at my store. Can you come and do a remote? And our response is always, listen, don't plan on the remote to bring. So people, if you ever listen to local radio, you might hear, yeah, we're at the dealership and blah, 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 and we're cooking hot dogs. It's better if we do it, if we go to an event to help add to the ambiance of it. But if you want a remote to actually bring in new customers, that's not what our job is. And it's exactly what you're talking about too, when you mentioned before about, having the guest. It's like our job is to, as podcasts, our job is to give you added value to your whatever you're doing. And then, like I say, it bugs me that we spend all the time working on these things. We're basically creating media for creators to utilize. And when they don't utilize it, it's kind of a kick in the pants. Sometimes we have people come on that actually benefits us, like having a bigger name come on benefits us. But when you're actually somebody comes in and asks, hey, can I come on your show? Yeah, but you better share these. You better share this. So
it's difficult, but it's something that we've all at least found some way to make it through.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's
at least for one more quarter.
Yeah, at least for one more quarter. Right. So what's happening in the next couple of months?
Jeff's going to be in December. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm December. I'm the end of year extravaganza.
I do have my 16th anniversary is on August 8th, so I'll be doing a live show for that if I'm not working. So I'll probably do like an hour on August 8th of 2024, just to kind of a YouTube live stream. So I'll do that.
Very cool.
Just to kind of keep that consistency and just chat with whoever shows up. So that's my main upcoming gig.
All right, Barney, you're up.
I guess so. For me, it's that I am doubling down on making sure that I have my, but I re-edit my interviews that are from Vermont artists and authors, and I put them specifically on the Vermont artists and authors. Same thing with the children's books. That seems to have been giving me a lot more traction, having that. But my goal is to, crack that 500 subscriber, which you guys have been there years ago. And I'm going to try to see if there's a way to monetize this. I'm trying to find ways to get sponsorships for this too. So being able to utilize my daytime business on how getting sponsors and just but creating value. It's like, this is the value for it. But that would be my guess, my take. Oh, and Jeff, I'm having my Kickstarter, so I might have to reach out to you. My Dadist jokes is
nice.
Trying to get that out in the fall.
I'm always available for some publicist work, so keep me posted. I always enjoy working with you. But for me, in July, I got, assuming everyone shows up. I had just Gary Anthony Williams will release. He's doing Batman the Cape Crusader. The voice, he does one of the voice from the characters. I got Peggy Lou from Venom 3 will come on a few months early, so that'll be interesting. Dan DiDio, the comic book guy, James Adomian, who does the voice of Bane, the Harley Quinn cartoon, is coming up. David Hewlett's coming back, who I like. Thomas Jane's coming back for a second visit. Awesome. So I'm excited. Samantha Glassner from The Ark. And Bill Ratner, the voice of Flint from the original G.I. Joe cartoon, will be on in the beginning of August. So that's what I got so far.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, let's wrap up the show with your closing outros as you guys normally do for your shows, and let's have fun at our next gathering, whenever that may be.
I don't have one. I've never had an outro. I got to get that.
So all these years.
After all this, I don't. But I can say we're recording this on July 3rd, so I can say, hey, England, have fun at work tomorrow.
Well, Barney, we're putting you on the spot right now. You have 5 seconds to come up with an outro for yourself, for your show.
Yeah.
5 seconds. Come up with something.
Go.
Love it. All right. Don't forget to brush your teeth and brush your hair, and make sure you don't get the brushes mixed up. Here, there we go.
Oh, that's a work in progress.
I guess so.
That's right. Next year, Barney. Next year.
Just chat
All right,
GPT an outro.
Yeah,
I should.
that's your job. From now on, your goal. We're gonna ask you every day now if you have an outro yet.
Yeah.
All right. I came up with my outro. It took 2.5 years, but I came up with mine. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Traverse the Stars, or in this case, Two Geeks Talking. Please help me battle, or us battle, the algorithms by liking and subscribing. And until next episode, travel on.
That ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking, the quarterly podcasting crew event of the year. You can, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our website, tgtmedia.com, or our YouTube channel, because that is definitely always updated, youtube.com/tgtmedia. The podcast is at twogeekstalking.podbean.com, or just search Two Geeks Talking, that's TWO, wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.